He said to them, "Because of your little faith. For truly I tell you, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you." Alrighty guys, hello. Today I really want to talk about the importance of faith in magic, right? So when we have a spell, when we have any kind of magic going, belief is essential to it. And there are a couple places where we can learn that this is true, not only in actual history, magical history, but also in some popular media that you may or may not know about. I want to talk about them both because it's always so fun for me as a fantasy writer when real world magical concepts appear in fictional places, right? Like our favorite shows, like our favorite books, movies, all that kind of stuff. But I've been thinking about this a lot because it really is true how imperative faith is to magic. And some people might say that because of that, magic is all just placebo effect, which is possible, right? I've made videos before about how, being an atheist witch is actually completely possible because atheist and agnostic witches, they see magic as a kind of self-induced placebo effect or a meditative, perspective shifting tool rather than something that actually causes any outside force to come and impact your life. Okay. However, as I said in that video as well, even though it might just be placebo, there are studies that have shown that even if you know about placebo, it can still work. So knowing that, we know that it doesn't matter what fancy tools you have, how much money you spend on materials, what kind of setup you have for an altar, what religion you ascribe to or claim to ascribe to, none of that matters if you don't actually have the belief in what you are doing and the belief that what you are doing is permissible. That second part is especially tricky because if you look at all those, ex-witches turned Christian, a big part of why things seem to blow up on them, aside from them being heinously uneducated about the work that they were doing, is that they seemed to always have this idea of witchcraft as something rebellious, idolatrous, and sinful, even if they never came out and said so. And you can tell by their actions, and you can definitely tell by how they act about witchcraft when they leave the practice. Then it's, oh, there are all these demons and there are all these spooky things, and it's like, did that happen, or did you just misinterpret everything from a place of fear and insecurity? Vote now on your phones. But in magical history, we can see the importance of belief in, certain different situations, namely when we talk about Martin Duffy's work, Anathema Maranatha, Christianity and the Imprecatory Arts. This book continues to fascinate me endlessly. I have all kinds of notes as it is. It is a wonderful resource if you want to know not only about Christian magic, but also specifically Christian baneful magic, like curses and hexes and other such things. Things called maledictions. The thing about these maledictions, right, especially with the priests and the popes and the saints and the clergymen that would, cast these curses on evildoers, is that they would take many different forms. One of the most extreme forms of curse was actually the act of excommunication, which they called the rite of bell, book, and candle. And it was very ritualistic, right? I mean, you had the bell that would ring as you kind of read from, the book, all the baneful scriptures. You would basically be invoking the authority of God to banish this person from the church. And then the candle would be representative of that person's soul, and at the end of the ritual it would be tossed down and snuffed out, representing their soul being snuffed and tossed to hell, basically. They had a lot of really intense stuff back in the day, right? But one thing that caught my eye that was just incredible was the concept of a liturgical curse. Basically, it is exactly what it sounds like, right? A priest would start Sunday Mass with a malediction. Someone who had just been freshly excommunicated, the priest would get up, name them, and then go on and, in the name of God and the saints and everybody else, curse the living hell out of that person in front of the entire Sunday congregation. The idea was that not only would the priest put the curse on people, but all of these people that are witnessing this, who believe the priest as a man of God has that kind of power to put that curse, their belief further cements the curse that comes down on the head of the excommunicated person. So therefore, all of those people in the pews become part of that kind of energetic battery that fuels the magic. Obviously, the source of our magic is God, but the things that we put there to further contribute to that energy, the plants, the stones, everything else, it just adds to it. And so when your ingredient for a spell is other people, and the psychological position of other people, the belief of other people, that definitely does boost the total oomph going into your petition. In this case, a curse. To bring it a little closer to home in witchcraft, we may or may not have heard of the concept of a self-curse. Self-curses are absolutely wild because these are the kinds of things that, even if you never got cursed, you can get cursed, if that makes sense. One of the most common tactics for a witch that doesn't want to lift a finger against an enemy is to make a show and make it look like they have cursed somebody, just for that person to get really paranoid, really fearful, and think that every little bit of misfortune that happens to them afterwards is a curse. Obviously, people deal with bad luck all the time. You know, we have bad days, bad things happen, you know, stuff goes awry. It just is what it is, it's life. But if you can get into someone's head and make them think that all of the bad things that they are now tallying and keeping track of are because someone cursed them, that is how you can actually completely upset their mental stability and have them kind of crawling around begging for you to remove a curse that you probably never even cast in the first place. That is the power of belief. That is the power of placebo. People absolutely every day start pointing fingers and thinking that someone cursed them because they had a little bit of a rough patch of luck and they wouldn't let it go. But as I said, we are going to talk about some more fictional aspects of this too. So this has been a little bit abstract up until this point. Maybe if you've either read this book or seen this anime, you'll know what I'm talking about. And first, of course, is the anime, is Jujutsu Kaisen. Jujutsu Kaisen, as I was watching it, I was like, wait a minute, they're using a lot of fun magical theory here. I love shows like that. That's why I really loved Full Metal Alchemist, which used a lot of actual, like, alchemical history and knowledge. I love Jujutsu Kaisen for the same reason, right? Because in this show, we have a lot of Jujutsu sorcerers who basically, they're kind of just like wizards in a way, but like with some actual martial skill. And what happens is there are a bunch of spirits that need to be exorcised, these spirits being the manifestation of people's fears called curses. If you know about egregore theory, you recognize that in here too. So for instance, Jogo, one of the characters with a volcano on his head, he represents humanity's collective fear of volcanoes. Egregore theory stipulates that if you pour enough energy into an idea, it can take form and sentience. That's kind of what these are. Enough people have poured their energy into the concept of volcanoes and their fear of it that it has become a malevolent being with traits that signify volcano, magma, fire. But I digress. When we get back to the actual mechanics of the energy, these sorcerers, basically what they have is this cursed energy that allows them to exorcise spirits, and if they are a family of curse users or, you know, any kind of sorcerer of any kind, they will have sometimes a family technique. Or if they're more independent, they'll have just a technique they develop themselves. So Fushiguro, right, his family technique has him using like all these different Shinigami, and there's another technique that he has, it's like even more than that, it's like wild, but he's summoning these gods of death to kind of help him out, right? We also have Nanami, who has his ratio technique, and so if he hits anyone like on the 7-3 ratio of their body, it's like an insta-kill. Things like that, right? These skills that help them use their sorcery, their curse energy more effectively. I explain all this to say, one of the mechanics of this system is that when they explain their curse to an enemy, the curse technique becomes more powerful. It's explained as, you know, when the enemy sees what they're doing and understands how it works, now it makes sense to them, now they believe in it more, and now that technique is further cemented and even more effective. Which suggests that if they just didn't believe that this technique was viable, that if they didn't understand how it worked or didn't see how it could work, that it would actually weaken the potential of that technique to do any damage. And this is why Sukuna in some of the latest episodes says, like, don't worry, I won't do anything as petty as revealing my technique, because He's powerful enough to not need to cement it in people's mind, he just uses it. But other people, especially when they're in a bind, they will explain their curse technique so that it's further cemented and therefore gets more powerful against someone that they're fighting, because that person now believes it works more. Another really fun example, though, outside of anime, was actually A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This was a really fun book. It's kind of not like Harry Potter-esque, but basically it's a world where there are wizards and, magicians, and they have their own secret orders and stuff, but it's also a world crawling with monsters. And the biggest thing that these magical-minded folk have to be aware of is, not getting eaten by a monster who wants the power that magicians have. Okay, so it all takes place with the main character and her, not friends, but her peers in this big magic school. In the magic school, there are no teachers, no supervisors of any kind. It's just a big building that operates purely on magic mechanics. So the first years will start up in the top dorms at the top, and each year it'll twist down towards the bottom floor, where there are an entire lobbies full of monsters that have broken the front door and are just waiting for the graduating class to make a run for it to the door, basically. So the entire time they're learning how to use their magic as like a defensive thing, to kill monsters, to protect themselves, so on and so forth. But a very fun thing about magic is that the main character explains that magic is hard to use in front of people who don't have it because they don't really believe in it. So it is actually very dangerous to try and defend yourself against a monster that non-magical people can't see, and in front of people who don't believe your magic works. It makes your magic not work, right? And then how do you defend yourself against the monster? And in the school itself, this school, since it operates entirely on magic, there is something to be said about the fact that, like, these characters, they're able to get through the hallways and stuff by believing, or at least wishing, for the room they want to appear. Because the structural integrity of this school is not great. It is actually not great. The only reason it's still standing is because the kids believe that it is stable enough to stand. So, literally, if you believed that there was a door there, there will be a door there. If you believed that a room is closer than it is, it'll be all of a sudden, boop, right there. If you believe that this hallway is endless, you will never get out of that hallway. It's belief that changes the entire structure of what the school looks like. It seems that even in our fiction, we understand that the more people focus their minds and their energies on something, the more legitimate it is, the more cemented in reality it is. I mean, even outside of magic, right? We've got people believing in basically entire separate universes at this point, where we got the Mandela effect, right? We got all these things where some people swear by things happening in this way, and other people have an entirely different view of the situation and firmly believe that no, it happened this way. How do you reconcile these when belief is so powerful? All this to say, I really just wanted to talk about the concept of belief because Jesus tells us how powerful belief is in Matthew. We have later evidence of Christians using this concept of belief as a part of their magical tools. And of course, nothing's made in a vacuum, and many of the pieces of media we really like to enjoy also play with these magical concepts, which are perfectly legitimate targets to get our own magical philosophy from. As you go about doing your own magic, please know that one of the hardest parts of making magic work isn't practicing, isn't using the right tools, isn't using the right herbs, blah, blah, blah. It's getting yourself to the point that you truly believe that what you're doing is working, and that what you're doing is worthy of working. As Christian witches especially, it also means that you believe that God is pulling through for you. When you start doubting your own magic, by extension, you're kind of doubting God, right? Because God's the one that gave you that magic. So if you're saying, well, this isn't going to work because I'm not strong enough, you were born strong enough. Absolutely were. And when you say things like, oh, it's not going to work, I can't do it, you're just doubting the power God gave you. Moreover, if you're asking God to do something and already deciding it's not going to work deep down, you're doubting His ability to pull through. Why would you do that? This is where that authority, or that concept of authority, really comes from, is from that belief, that faith, that trust that you have the power and that the one who gave it to you is there with you when you are, making your petitions, casting your spells, and saying your prayers. So don't discount the power of belief. It is the quintessential ingredient to any spell you're going to do outside of the actual magic in your own body. I I hope that gives you guys something to think about, and I will see you next time for some more chats. See ya.